Welcome to a crossover edition on Thursday with Locked On Jaguars and Locked On Bills. I got a guy I got a lot of respect for on the line right now and on YouTube if you're watching, Joe Marino from Locked On Bills and, of course, the Draft Network. What's up, Joe?
What's going on, Tony, man? Looking forward to this conversation. Always enjoy talking ball with you.
Absolutely. We're just going to get right into it. The Bills coming into this game as a Super Bowl favorite. They have an offensive coordinator that a lot of people think should have been our head coach in Jacksonville. The Jacksonville Jaguars are 1-6. And absolutely a week later, they're looking around now wondering if this is the right thing to do when just a week ago they were saying we're seeing progress. So got a lot to decipher here. We're going to jump right into it early here, but we got to let everybody know that today's show obviously is brought to you by McDonald's. Man, McDonald's has been a part of our community for a long time. It's a great meeting place for all of us to get together and have some good food. McDonald's, make sure you go by and check them out, and we're all loving it. So, Joe, what is going on with Buffalo, man? Y'all riding high. It's, lately the last couple of years has been like this, but for a long time, you guys were sort of in the situation that the Jacksonville Jaguars are in right now, where you just scratch your head trying to get it figured out. And it seems like with the leadership they have now, they've absolutely done that.
Yeah, 17-year playoff drought is what this team went through. And then Sean McDermott was hired in 2017. And in year one, he ended the drought. And that was great to see the team get to the playoffs. Unfortunately, the season ended with a loss to the Jaguars in the playoffs. I'm sure we all remember that game. And then the Bills took their medicine in 2018 with some salary cap hell that they had to get out of. And then last couple of years, it's really been about building a championship caliber team, 10-6 and playoffs in 2019. 2020, we all know 13-3. They got to the AFC Championship game, and they've paid their dues. That's what I've kind of been preaching here, is that the Bills have paid their dues. They've had their playoff losses. They went to the AFC Championship game and lost, and now it's time for them to kind of cash in and meet some really high expectations for this year. And so far, so good. The team's playing well on both sides of the ball. They lead the NFL in scoring. They lead the league in fewest points allowed, scoring efficiency, turnover differential. And so they maybe haven't played the most challenging schedule, but this isn't college basketball. You don't get to pick your schedule. And to the Bills' credit, the games that they're winning in convincing fashion. And so while maybe you're not that impressed by a 35-0 win over the Dolphins or a 40-0 win over the Texans, other teams aren't beating those teams like that, and so the Bills can only play the teams on their schedule. It doesn't get tougher. The Bills have a date with the Buccaneers later in the season.
Yeah.
The Saints and Colts are probably their next two hardest games. And then, it's teams like the Jaguars and a couple against the Jets and the Falcons. And so if that's going to be the narrative surrounding this team, I think they're okay with that. They just want to be the best team on the field every Sunday, stack wins, and hopefully play some football in February this year.
Sometimes your first impression of a team or the first thing that you come up with isn't a good thing. Of course, making us, the Bills and Jaguars, your first listen every day does here on Locked On Jaguars. But the first thing that comes to mind is when they hire McDermott, people will go, who? What? And it's not sexy. And then when you think about it, no one remembers. They're the team that actually traded the draft picks to Kansas City so they can take Patrick Mahomes. So then you'd go, if you saw Mahomes winning the MVP and winning the Super Bowl, you're like, what? The Bills did that? It's almost like the Bulls, the Portland Trailblazers not taking Michael Jordan. But upon further review, I said this earlier this year, if you listen to the description that everyone has of Patrick Mahomes, but you watch that Monday night game when the Chiefs and the Bills played, you think the guy that they were actually talking about was Josh Allen.
Yeah, it's interesting. Man, Patrick Mahomes might be a victim of his own success, right? His big-time numbers and expectations are high. He's getting paid all that money, and I'm sure that there's a big part of him that feels some urgency to continue to put up high, stats, big-time stats, being in the NFL MVP race. And I think he's just having a hard time right now just doing the normal stuff, right? Just play football, work within the structure of the offense and quit chasing the big plays and doing unorthodox things. Just make normal throws. And I think that's gotten in the way of Patrick Mahomes this year. And they're not very deep when it comes to their weapons, right? They have Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. And then what else? That's it, right? I mean, they just don't have a ton of options. And so when teams are not respecting your ability to run the football and they're flooding the passing lanes and you don't have more than 2 were the options to go to with the football, it really limits that offense. And Patrick Mahomes is not doing a good enough job of taking what that offense, the defense is giving him. But I know you didn't ask me a question to talk about Patrick Mahomes. This is about Josh Allen. This is about Sean McDermott. And yeah, you're right. It wasn't a splashy hire, and that's okay with me because they made the splashy hire with Rex Ryan before Sean McDermott. So give me the boring guy. Give me the guy that's a leader, right? A CEO type that's going to come in and establish culture and be a coach that people want to follow and get behind. And I think that's exactly what's happened under Sean McDermott, where he's really established a culture. It's a situation where this team is a tight-knit group. They love each other. They care about each other. They're connected off the field. Their families are tight with each other. The Pagulas, the owners, have put in the money in terms of building, world-class facilities in terms of training and the best weight room in the NFL, the best recovery facilities in the NFL. And Sean McDermott preaches that he wants Buffalo to be a place where players come and they're the best version of themselves. And I think we've seen that, whether it's been Cole Beasley or Steph Diggs or John Brown or Darrell Williams or whatever player they bring in, they do that. And I think it's because of the culture. It's because of the resources committed to player development and injury prevention. And obviously there's good talent. There's good coaching. And you have a really nice recipe for sustained success. And obviously one of the big catalysts for that is the Bills hitting on Josh Allen. And yeah, you're right. The Bills traded away from Patrick Mahomes. And they got an extra first-round pick. And they traded back and got Trey White, who's one of the best 5 cornerbacks in the NFL. Got the extra draft pick they needed to move up from in the 20s to get to 7 to get Josh Allen. And it looks like some really smart choices along the way here to build a team that has one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL and one of the best coaching staffs and all the talent Brandon Beane has assembled throughout the years. The Bills are in really good shape to have a window that's open for a while. And, you obviously want to cash in, and they certainly have a good chance to do that this year.
Now, this podcast, this show is probably going to be the greatest one I've ever recorded. And the reason why is because what you just described, the Bills doing, is exactly what Urban Meyer said he wants to do. Strength and performance, culture. They're building a new facility here. They got it approved through the city council. He's talking about making this a destination place. He's talking about players sticking together. They got a quarterback that I think is super talented that they hit on. So either Jaguar fans, we're going to find out in segment 2, but either Jaguar fans are happy and relieved that we're talking about it, the results not showing up right away, and they've heard every single thing that you just said about the Buffalo Bills that's good, that Urban Meyer has said out of his mouth. It's either that or they're going to say, yeah, but Urban isn't Sean McDermott. And so he's talking all of these things and he's saying all of these things, but it doesn't mean that the results going to happen because he says he wants to be the best in the league at strength of performance and conditioning. And it sounds like Buffalo is saying the same thing. And so one of the things that I've been harping on is this. He ain't the only one that knows how to lift weights and get doctors in here and do all of those things. Other people are doing the very same things that he's saying. So now the Jaguar fans are scratching their head going, should I be mad or should I be angry or should I be happy? Because Joe Marino says that Buffalo, who's doing well, is saying the same things that Urban Meyer is saying. So in segment 2, I'm going to give you the rundown here on what's going on in Jacksonville, man. And I'm going to let you just fire off, and then we're going to go into segment 3, and we're going to make some game predictions. So stand by for more of Joe Marino here on Locked On Jaguars on the crossover Thursday and Locked On Bills. We'll be back in just a second. I got to tell you guys about McDonald's, man. McDonald's is the absolute truth. And you can go there with your family, you go there with your friends and eat some good food every single day. McDonald's has been a staple of the community since 1965. That's about 4 years before I was born. I know I'm showing my age here, Joe, but they've done it, man. They've had that quality service for an awful long time. So you can head to your McDonald's to refuel and connect. I like going by in the morning when I'm reviewing my paperwork for the podcast and having a nice McCafe and going over all of the comments that you guys leave for me in the comments section, of course. It's a place where friends and family can come in and reconnect, a place where classmates can meet up for study groups, knowing they'll have dependable Wi-Fi and endless supplies of French fries and McFlurries. My personal favorite are the nuggets with the hot mustard sauce, and you try it, you're going to slap somebody, I'm telling you. So make sure you check out your local McDonald's and head to your McDonald's and refuel and connect. You know what? I'm absolutely loving it. I want to holler at you about Get Upside also, man. Get Upside is the cold, hard truth. It is an app where you can actually save gasoline. Really, you can save money on gas. 25 cents for every gallon of gas every time you fill up, no gimmicks. You just download the Get Upside app in your app store or on Google Play. And you do that right now. If you use the promo code touchdown, you're going to save 25 cents for every gallon. And then on the initial fill up, you're going to save an additional 25 cents per gallon. So that's 50 cents on your first fill up when you use the app called Get Upside and the promo code, which is touchdown. Now, I know everybody likes saving money. I hope so. And you can do this right now with no gimmicks, and that money will be in your account until you want to unload it back into your bank account or through your PayPal account or e-gift card or Amazon or other brands. The app is called Get Upside. You can find it in your App Store or your Play Store on Google Play. And the promo code is touchdown. Start saving gas right now, 25 cents per every gallon, 50 cents for your first pickup.
Joe Marino, Locked On Bills, joined by my good friend Tony Wiggins, Locked On Jaguars, and got a fascinating team down there in Jacksonville to cover. A lot going on, and I think I do want to start with Urban Meyer and get your thoughts on the direction of the team, and just marrying his past and what's happened throughout the college football world, giving him this franchise, right, with all the draft capital that they have, all of the free agent dollars, Trevor Lawrence sitting there to be the number one pick, and entrusting this to a guy that has had a lot of success in college, but there's been controversy, Tony, man. Everywhere he's been, there's been controversy, and we've already seen it happen in Jacksonville. So I'd like your real honest thoughts on the direction of this football team under Urban Meyer.
I'm disappointed. I actually thought what they were getting was that CEO, the program builder. And what it seems like we've gotten here is a little bit of incompetence. A guy that says he studied the league for 10 years, but then he gets here and all of a sudden he realizes that there's more parity, and that he said something after the first 3 weeks. He said, every week it's Alabama. You didn't know that? I mean, you put enough guys in the league to understand that, you've had a lot of guys that played really well that didn't turn out to be great in the NFL. So you didn't know that this was hard if you studied it for 10 years. He says it's a 3-hour root canal. You didn't know that either. This is just the way it's going to be. A bad team can hang with a good team for a long time. It's just baffling to me that they've come out unprepared when they've had time. They came out of training camp and got really mollywopped in Houston by the Texans. And then after a bye week, they come out and they play the same type of game they played when the season opened, and they get destroyed again this past week in Seattle and just look totally unprepared. Let me tell you what happened, Joe. They got 12 men on the field after change of possession. They got a penalty. They had to call a timeout on the next play. There were still 12 guys in the huddle. And it's almost as if they were looking around at each other. So you think he has a big-time coaching staff. He has way more resources than Doug Marrone had. He has way more resources in the personnel department than Dave Caldwell had. And it actually looks worse. If you have a 1-15, Joe, you have a 1-15. You're a big-time personnel guy who I respect, one of the best in the business. But you have a 1-15 team. If you draft a guy 45th overall, should he be a healthy scratch? That's Walker Little.
You've been on this for a while now, man. We've talked a couple of times about Walker Little and him being inactive.
Andre Cisco, the 3rd-round pick that they thought had first-round talent, he hasn't been a healthy scratch, but he played 3 plays this week. It's almost as if they're redshirting guys. Are you good enough to do that? And then are guys good enough to be picked that high if they need to be redshirted? It just doesn't make a lot of sense. Tyson Campbell, who was the first pick in the 2nd round, has no ball skills. I remember Bill Parcells described one of his players in Dallas. He said it's like a dog chasing the mail truck. That's what Tyson Campbell looks like. He looks like he's just running with the truck. He's not turning around for the ball. And people have buyer's remorse because they're saying Asante Samuel was on the board and they took Tyson Campbell. Folks are doing this now, and they're questioning whether Urban Meyer knows what he's doing from a personnel standpoint.
Tony, let's establish something real quick here. The name Doug Marrone, we don't mention that. All right. So if you could just avoid
I will.
That. Yeah,
I forgot what Dougie did. That's right.
Well, I think with the benefit of hindsight, we're all very grateful that he did that. But man, your coach quit on you, dude. We don't like Doug. We don't like Doug. So Trevor Lawrence, number 1 pick, all the talent in the world, big time pedigree, build as really I don't know if generational is a fair word to say, but one of the most sought after quarterbacks in my lifetime, in
Right.
terms of covering this NFL. And so what have you learned? What have you learned about Trevor Lawrence so far through, what is it, 7 starts?
Yeah, he's got it in his chest, and you see it. He gets frustrated, and only until this week, did you see him actually start to get frustrated at receivers and doing that thing where you're pointing at receivers saying you went the wrong way on a bad pick that he had. So I think he's playing a little hero ball right now, and he has to do that, but he makes some throws, man, that blow your mind. And I know you guys know that because of Josh. Josh would make some throws. There wasn't a question about Trevor's accuracy coming in, and right now he's under 60%. And a lot of that is throwing balls away. He's trying to extend plays, and they're just not getting much separation from the wide receivers. In fact, Urban Meyer said 2 days ago that the number one thing they need is a separation guy, and they don't have that right now. And I guess they drafted Travis Etienne to be a speed guy, but they're really missing downfield ability to get away from people. So
DJ Chark, right? Nice to have him, right? But
right. It'd be nice to have him. And I also thought that they might make some sort of deal in the trade deadline to bring in one of the older guys just to see what you have in your quarterback. But that's not a route that they went. But I think from a film study standpoint, from how he is able to take what he learns in practice, and you'll see it actually go on the field, and you'll see him play differently the next week. And the way he explains stuff, I think the biggest thing about him right now, outside of his obvious physical talent, is the fact that the losses haven't gotten into his head to the point where he sounds like a rookie. He still sounds like a veteran who believes that this thing is going to get turned around when the talent gets turned around. Kind of reminds me of Troy Aikman back in 1990.
Well, you got to think a guy like Trevor Lawrence, success has just been there for him every step of the way. High school, college, national championships. And now he's got some adversity, right? For the first time in his football career, where, I don't think anyone's surprised, right, that the Jaguars are not a good football team at this point in their life cycle. Year 1 under Urban Meyer, Trevor Lawrence's rookie season, a roster that needs work. Like, I don't think anyone's surprised by the results to this point. But for a guy like Trevor Lawrence, who has had all the success that he's had literally every step of the way in his football career, to have to face some adversity is probably good for him, right? Like, the way he's wired, the way his mental makeup is, like, he's going to be better for everything that he's going through this year, just like Josh Allen was back in his rookie season, where there were plenty of ups and downs, probably a lot more downs than there were ups. And it's all about how you respond and how you come out of that and how you fail forward. And I think Trevor Lawrence is the type of guy that can do that. And especially because he does have those really dynamic physical gifts in terms of size and arm talent. And he's a really good runner. And I'm surprised he's not running more. And that's definitely something that if you watch him at Clemson, you're like, wow, this guy's physical with the ball in his hands. He's a good athlete. I mean, go back to that Ohio State game, man. This guy's ripping off runs left and right. So I'm anxious to see him evolve as a player, because he doesn't have limitations, right? There's nothing he can't do on the field. And there is that leadership component that exists. And so as a draft guy and just a fan of football, I'm really excited to follow the career of Trevor Lawrence. Now, you mentioned the weapons and not necessarily having the separation guys. And I think the Bills learned that lesson as well. Year 1 for Josh Allen, it was Kelvin Benjamin and Andre Holmes as the receivers, brother. I mean, we're talking about some clunkers there not being able to get open.
Couple of tight ends.
Yeah, man. So I'm interested in hearing you talk about the weapons that we're going to see on Sunday, and in particular, Jamal Agnew, because you want to talk about a guy that's scary with the ball in his hands, and a player that, from an opponent's perspective, studying this game and being concerned about him being an X factor. Jamal Agnew's that type of player, and I see that he's gaining more and more opportunity with this offense. So tell us about Agnew and Marvin Jones and Laviska Shenault and the running back situation, all that stuff here around Trevor Lawrence.
You got it. You guys are probably going to avoid the running back because James Robinson has a heel bruise, and they don't know what his status is going to be. So you're probably going to get a heavy dose of Carlos Hyde. And the thing, we'll go in reverse order with the receivers. Marvin Jones is a professional pass catcher. You've seen him. Guys that just know how to find those holes and sit down for the quarterback, and he usually catches everything that's thrown to him. So he's been a good football player for him. He's the kind of guy who's going to be a 3rd or 4th receiver on a good team at this point in his career. He used to be a number 2. Laviska Shenault has been a little bit of a disappointment because he's a playmaker. You think of him as sort of a Swiss Army knife. People compared him to Anquan Bolden and Hines Ward and all of these people. Well, when they put the lights on him, he's dropped some balls in some critical situations. So it's almost as if the ball isn't thrown perfectly, he's not adjusting and he's not going down to get it. And I think he's lost a little bit of his confidence. In terms of Jamal Agnew, you are spot on with him. He's a breath of fresh air. He's a Swiss Army knife. The guy's played defensive back, running back, wide receiver. And when you watch him play, this is a name that's familiar to you guys. He kind of reminds you of an early Wes Welker. That's how he moves around and how
more explosive though.
Yeah. And see, they always think that guys like that are like underachieving white guys. Well, Jamal Agnew is that dude. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So if he was a Patriot, by the way, and I know I probably shouldn't mention them to your fans either.
Yeah, we don't do that either. But go ahead.
But that's what it is. That's that dude right there. That's what he is. So the thing with him is the wide receiver part of his game should be an extra. Now it's something that they're depending on. And that's what bad teams do. You depend on something that should really be icing on the cake and an extra thing for you. And that's not the way to go. Like, I see your guys getting separation, whether it's McKenzie, of course, Diggs and Beasley. All of those guys are real good in short, quick areas, and they find those windows. It's not happening here with the Jaguars. So there's some philosophical issues here too. Sometimes they do stuff that we don't know what they're doing, and that's because Urban said when he got here what he wanted to do was bring some of his things from college and blend it in with Derail Bevel stuff. And there just seems to be this disconnect offensively between them. The one thing I will tell you about Trevor, and I'll just attach this back to what we were saying about him, and this will go into your personnel side. With Gardner Minshew, if they got a pre-snap penalty on first down or a negative play and it was second and whatever long, we all knew they should go ahead and just punt. With Trevor, he could get sacked and it could be second and 19, and you think they're going to get out of it. That's just that mindset.
Yeah, we get it. Yeah.
Because he's going to throw that little hitch pass and they're going to get 9. It's 3rd and 10. Ain't no problem. 14-yard completion, first down. Let's go. That's the difference in him. But I can only imagine what it's like if you're able to surround him with better talent.
Yeah, no question. Let me sneak a question in here about Chris Manhertz. I know that's probably not a player you expected to discuss, but he's a local, right, for the Bills fans, Canisius College, and he's had a few stops along the way, but he's kind of developed into one of the better blocking tight ends in the NFL. So real quick for the Buffalo people here on Chris Manhertz.
Yeah, shout out to the Buffalo people, man. Chris Manhertz came in as a blocking tight end. Obviously with the athletic profile really fit what Urban Meyer and what Trent Baalke wanted. And the irony is the first touchdown that was scored of this season. Everybody say blocking tight end. If you'd have gone to Vegas, Chris Manhertz would have been 1,000,000 to 1. He caught Trevor Lawrence first touchdown of the year, or right up the seam in Houston. And it was like everyone on Twitter said the same thing. Who would have thought that and who would have bet that? So what he is he is a blocker. He's a big-time blocker who can catch some passes every now and then. But Chris Manhertz claim to fame is he was the guy that in practice in one-on-ones absolutely embarrassed Tim Tebow. And that's when you knew that Tim Tebow wasn't going to be. I mean, he manhandled him like it was me. And that's when you realize the difference in NFL guys and NFL guys who are role players and then a guy who's been on TV for 9 years. So he's doing everything that he's supposed to be doing. He's not a pass catcher. He's not someone they're featuring. But when you look at their run game and you look at James Robinson averaging just about 5 yards a carry, and you look at the fact that they're able to maul people if they can stay in the games, Chris Manhertz has an awful lot to do with that. He's the guy everybody in the franchise really loves to have.
Real quick on the Jaguars defense, feels like everybody's throwing the ball all over them, right? Really struggling to defend the pass, but they're really good at stopping the run, only allowing 3.7 yards per attempt. That's third best in the NFL. And we're talking about a Jaguars team that's facing plenty of rushing attempts, given some of the leads that they've had to deal with and other teams running the football. And so what's making this run defense so good? What's making this pass defense so bad?
Devon Hamilton is a superstar, and they use him at nose tackle. He can even play. He can 2-gap a 3 technique also. Second-year guy out of Ohio State. He's very, very good. I thought it was a wasted pick because I listened to some people.
You should have read my scouting report on Hamilton. You didn't know, and I loved him.
Yeah, he can move. He's 330 pounds, dude, and he moves like he's 280.
Yeah.
Right. And they know him very well. They coached him at Ohio State. They made a move for Malcolm Brown, who Charlie Strong coached in college at Texas. So you get two 330-pound guys right there, right? They've gotten really good play out of guys like Adam Gostis, an Australian cat who was here last year, who's really played well. Dewan Smoot has played well when he's been given the opportunity to play. He's built a little bit different than he was years ago at Illinois. By the way, shout out to Dewan Smoot for delivering this baby. I don't know if you heard the story.
Yeah, it's a crazy story.
Yeah. And he's one of the great. First of all, I would have passed out. The
brother, I know.
They would have showed up
a baby a year and a half ago, and I couldn't imagine. Yeah, I get it.
No, they'd have showed up, and they'd have had to take all three of us to the hospital.
Yeah, I get it for
sure. The thing is, he's been really one of their 4 or 5 best defenders. And then Josh Allen, say what you want to say about him numbers wise. He's played really well the last 3 weeks, former top 10 pick. Josh Allen is very stout against the run, playing on the edge. He comes down the line and he causes a lot of havoc. So the problem with the coverage, they've invested. I think Dave Caldwell used 4 picks on defensive backs in 2020. This year, they traded for Shaq Griffin, or they signed Shaq Griffin in free agency. They signed Rashawn Jenkins in free agency. They drafted Tyson Campbell. They've used so many resources on the defensive backs, they can't cover. They can't cover anybody. Shaq Griffin has played well. I think he's a really good number 2 on a very, very good team. But they're paying him like he's a number 1. They don't have a number 1, and they used like I said, the 33rd pick overall on a guy who probably should be a number 3 or number 4. And it doesn't look like he has the ability to change that, because it's the same stuff. I probably read your scouting report on Tyson Campbell, and he probably said he didn't have no ball skills.
Yeah, that wasn't hard to identify. Anybody that watched Tyson Campbell knows that he's long, athletic, and can't find the football.
Right, and it's the same thing here now. So they always seem like they're a day late and a dollar short when it comes to covering people. And, you can chalk that up to a new staff for a while, but then after that, no. At some point, you're like, this is what it is, and they need to get exponentially better at that position.
It's that wonderful time of year again, Tony, where there's a lot of sports on TV. You've got the NHL and NBA seasons that are underway. We're halfway through the NFL season. College football is on like every day now that we get Maction on Tuesdays. And so if you like to bet on sports, BetOnline remains the number 1 spot for all the sports action this season. Head to their new updated website and sign up today, and you'll receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit when you use our promo code Locked On. From basketball, football, baseball, NHL, boxing, UFC, they've even got Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports, and BetOnline is where the game starts.
All right, Ray, we want to run through it real quick here in the third segment of Locked On Jaguars, and we thank you again for making us and Locked On Bills in the respective markets your first listen every day. I'm here with Joe Marino from the Draft Network, and of course, Locked On Bills. I'm going to start reading all your jobs, man. You got 17 titles.
That's
on here,
it,
man.
Brother. Just draft stuff and talking Bills on the podcast, man.
I know it, right? So we'll make some predictions for the game and how I think the game's going to go from the Jaguars side. Look, 2 of the best halves they played this year, well, 3 of them were against the Bengals. They almost won the game. The Cardinals, they were winning at halftime. And the Titans, they played really well. And those are 3 of the best teams right now, according to power rankings in the top 12. They're 3 of the best teams in the league. I think for a minute the Jaguars are going to show up a little bit, because I think they're going to look up and the Bills Mafia is going to be in the stands, and I think they're going to take it personally. That's what they seem like that's what they do. And a lot of bad football teams do that for some reason. They get up for games that they shouldn't. But eventually what wears them down is the fact that the Bills can make too many big plays. Josh Allen is this is Josh Allen versus Josh Allen, by the way. Yeah. Josh Allen is he's mobile, and he's going to be able to extend plays. And eventually, I don't know if Knox is playing. You can let me know. But the tight end has killed this team too over the years. So if the Bills are able to extend drives like they can, keep the Jaguars offense off the field, and do what they do, I expect this to just be a cumulative effect where they sort of wear them down. And I'll go Buffalo 30, Jaguars 16.
Well, you mentioned how Jacksonville has gotten up for some of the tougher teams on their schedule. And I think that's a role that the Bills have embraced. And I think it's an understanding that you are one of the better teams in the league, one of the best teams in the AFC, and other teams want to be where you are. They want to be regarded to where you are. And Sean McDermott really preaches that message about respecting every opponent. And I know the Bills are favored to win this game on the road pretty handily. But when you consider the games that the Bills have played, and I mentioned the schedule earlier in this podcast already, they've handled their business against teams they're supposed to handle their business against. I mentioned 40-0 over Houston, 35-0 over Miami on the road in Florida week 2. And so the big wins have come against the teams that the Bills are supposed to handle. And I think that's a testament to a lot of the stuff we've already talked about with how focused this team is and in the culture and wanting to prove it every single week. They say things like it's a week-to-week league and that humility in the NFL is 1 week away. And these are buzzy phrases that the Bills live by. And I think that's contributed to a lot of their success. And so last week against Miami, coming out of the bye, they were pretty sloppy in the first half of that game. They put it together at halftime and really pulled away and wound up winning by a couple of scores. And I think that the Bills would come out with a little bit more focus this time and ready to play the game that they want to from the outset. And one of the messages from Coach McDermott this year has been, we want to be two-dimensional on offense, and we want to make other teams one-dimensional on offense. And so the Bills are going to come out aggressive. They're going to come out and try to score points and put the Jaguars in a hole and make them a team that has to pass the football. And then when you know that the other team has to pass the football, you pin your ears back, you get after that rookie quarterback who has not played well against the blitz this year, who has not handled pressure well this year. And I understand that the offensive line has some holes and that he doesn't have the weapons and he's a rookie. So that's not an unexpected thing to say. But when you can get the Jaguars to be a one-dimensional team and get Trevor Lawrence away from that play action, which has been a big benefit to his game this year, he's third in the NFL when it comes to completion percentage differential with and without play action, right? It's a big benefit to what he does. And so I think the Bills are going to really be focused in on trying to make Jacksonville a one-dimensional team and tee off on Trevor Lawrence and meanwhile try to score points early. And so that's a reasonable script for the Bills. And if they can convert in the red zone, which has been a challenge for them, they were 3 out of 4 against Miami, but before last week, they'd been a team that struggled in the red zone. In fact, that's why they lost to Tennessee. Yep. They had those 2 early opportunities to score touchdowns, came away with 2 sub-30-yard field goals. All of a sudden, you're winning 6-0 instead of 14-0, and then a 76-yard touchdown run from Derrick Henry later. You're losing. You're losing the game. And so you got to cash in. And so, and to Jacksonville's credit, they've been really good in terms of scoring touchdowns in the red zone this year. And so, look, it's about the Bills putting it all together and handling their business. And I think it's a reasonable expectation for me to believe that they will. You got to stack wins. They're still hungry. Obviously, they have a lot to prove. They always have a chip on their shoulder. And so I think the Bills will win this football game. I've never done a score prediction for a game, but I think the Bills will probably be in the 30s. I think that, man, I think it's just a bad matchup for Jacksonville, both from the perspective of Trevor Lawrence and where he's been successful this year and the challenges that a Bills defense presents under Sean McDermott and tons of talent at every level of the field. And then offensively, I mean, the Bills throw the ball. And Jacksonville's allowing 8.2 yards or net yards per passing attempt. They're allowing 113 passer rating to opposing quarterbacks this year. And now you got Josh Allen and Steph Diggs and Emmanuel Sanders and Cole Beasley to deal with. Like, that's a tough assignment. And so I'm not trying to come in here with a pumped up chest and like, wow, the Bills are so good. I'm just being honest about what these teams are. And this might be an embarrassing soundbite in a week, but I feel really good about the Bills being able to score in the 30s and keep Jacksonville under 20 and win this football game.
James Rapine, who hosts Locked On NFL with me on Wednesday, will tell you, I picked Buffalo to go to Super Bowl. So this is how I feel about him. And that's before I knew Russo was going to actually be as good as he looked 2 years ago at Miami.
I'll tell you what. You want to talk about a matchup that I can't wait to watch. It's Jawan Taylor, the right tackle for Jacksonville against Rousseau, because I love Taylor. Had a high grade on him, and I think he's kind of coming along nicely, but really athletic, physical, long arm type blocker. And so I'm anxious to see that matchup with Rousseau. That's going to be a fun one-on-one, battle there between, two really talented players out of the state of Florida, right?
He's a great run blocker, but he has really, really struggled against guys that can turn that corner. So we're going to see. You can check out also the Peacock and Williamson podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Brian Peacock is an NFL analyst, and Matt Williamson is a former NFL scout. So they put those two things together, man, and they come up with a really, really great podcast. It's the actual one of the cornerstones of the Locked On NFL and the Locked On Podcast Network. So make sure you check that out and subscribe. This has been real, man. I got the chance to chop it up with Joe. Joe's always busy, and I'm always busy, but this has been fun. So I hope the Bills Mafia come. Look, let me tell you what happened last time they came down here. Okay, they went to one of these suburban neighborhoods down. As a matter of fact, it was my old neighborhood, and it's upper middle class, and they went to one of the wing places. Absolutely. I ain't gonna say they destroyed it, but they ran out of wings and they turned over tables and all of this stuff, and they had a good time. Tell them to pick the right neighborhood this time, because people laughed at them. They said they chose the wrong neighborhood. They tore up a suburban wing spot, man. So they actually had a great time, and they behaved real well when they were down here the last time. But they come, when I tell you, and they don't take planes. They drive their trucks. They drive their trucks with salt on them, bro. They come down here. I'm telling you.
You offer some Western New Yorkers an opportunity or an excuse to get down to Florida in November. They're gonna get down there, man. They're gonna get down there,
hey, bro. And they weren't at the airport. They drove pickup trucks. It was like we haven't seen trucks with salt on them, and I know where the salt comes from.
Yeah.
The snow, man. So that was a lot of fun. As was this, Joe, and we thank you here, and we're glad to do this crossover for you guys. You guys do what I always say, man. Make sure y'all take care of each other, and we'll see you next time.